Hi, I'm Azzy. Welcome to my channel. Using the ScanNCut, I'm going to show you how to use the group function on the object edit screen. If we go into patterns, into basic shapes, we can go into any of them. I'm just going to show you in the basic shapes. Just pick this stamp here and set it to the mat. From here, if we go into edit, object edit, you'll notice that this function isn't on. This is the group function, and that's because to group anything we need two or more items. So if we go into duplicate, let's put 3 of these on our mat. So now we've got 3 stamps on our mat. So if we go into OK, go into select, and here we've got 2 further functions. So that's select all. So if I tap on here, it selects all of them, and this is partial select. We'll come back to that in a moment. So if we go select all, say OK, object edit, and now that's lit up. So if I tap on here, that now has grouped all of those 3. So if you want to ungroup them, tap onto there, tap on the screen, and it ungroups them again. But if we only want to group these 2, go back to OK, into select, into partial select, move our mat over, say OK, object edit, and group. So now it's grouped those 2, but this one's still on its own. But again, we can still ungroup it by tapping on here and tapping on the screen. So the purpose of grouping multiple objects is to either resize them in the same proportion in one go, or to be able to move them around on our mat together. So for example, here, if I go into resize, we'll be able to see that the size of this stamp is 3.94 square, and this one is exactly the same. So if we group those 2, so go into OK, select, partial select, move this mat over, say OK, object edit, and group. So now if we go into resize, what that actually gives us is the measurements of this red bounding box, not of the individual stamps. And that's a little bit of an issue, but I suppose if you're doing lots, like say if you've got 15-20 different objects to resize, then it is helpful. But for me personally, if I've got about 3 or 4 objects, I'd just do them individually. But if I've got more than that, I would group them and then do them. So from here, we know that each of these are 3.94. So if we want them to be, let's say 3 inches, it's a bit of a guess. So I'm just going to take that down to, well, I suppose if we have it on the mat here, we can even more or less do it, but that's only because we're doing a whole amount. So let's see, that's probably about 3 inches. So if we ungroup them, tap the screen, tap on our resize, and look, it's taken us down to 3.33. So again, we'd have to go back and group them and then resize it and then ungroup it to check. So it's a bit of going back and forth, but like I say, if you've got a couple of 3 or maybe even 4 objects, it's probably quicker just to do them individually. But if you've got 15-20 objects on your mat, it's probably better to just go back and forth, grouping them, ungrouping them, and checking. If we go back to the main screen, let's pick up different objects this time. So go into basic shapes again. We'll just pick up 4 different ones. And let's do a heart, and we've got them 4 set to our screen here. Oops. So from here, if we want to now resize all of those, first of all, if we go into edit and object edit and we look at the size of them, we'll see that's 3.94, so is that, so is that, and so is that in the width. So more or less most of the objects that are on the in the basic shapes are at 3.94 when you first put them onto the mat, and then you resize them from there. So if we want to change the size of all of them together, we want to group them first and then reduce them or increase them by the same amount. So from here, go into OK, go into OK, into select, select all, say OK, object edit and group. So that has now grouped them. So now we can resize them, either make them bigger or smaller by the same amount. So if we go into resize, let's take this down to 5 inches. Although that is actually giving us the size of this red bounding box, because that's the only way the machine allows us to do it. So let's go into OK, ungroup, tap the screen, and now if we're going to resize, we'll notice that's 2.4 for the heart, so is that scalloped square, so is the circle, and so is the width of our hexagon. So what it allows us to do is change the proportion of the objects by the same amount. But say from here you wanted to only change these two and not those, we can just group those two and change the size, and then these would just be the same, and then we could group them all together. So if we go into OK, go into OK, go into select, partial select, take this mat over. You always need to have highlighted one of the objects that are within the group that you want to group. So we want to group those two, say OK, object edit and group. So now those two are both in a group together. So if we go into object edit and resize, and let's just say we want to make them bigger. I don't know how much by, because we don't know until we just come back and forth, but they'll be bigger than those two. Say OK, ungroup and tap the mat. So now we've again just got 4 separate objects on our mat, but for whatever reason we might want to group all those 4 together. So again, if you go into OK, select, select all, say OK, object edit and group, and that then groups all of those together, but we've got them at different sizes. Now you might think, okay, but you want to now reproportion those by the same amount, although they are different sizes. So again, if you go into resize and then take them down by 1 inch. So although again it's the bounding box, all the objects will reduce by the same amount. So if I take that down to say 5 inches, say OK, tap on here, tap on the screen. So now if we go into the scallop, that's 2.01 inches. This would be the same because they were the same in the first place, and these two will also be the same because they were the same when we increased them. So that's 2.43 in the width, and this is 2.3 as the circle. So they're the different ways of how to group objects. So if you go back to the main screen, let's have a look at alphabet letters this time. So if go into here, I'm just going to use the first alphabet. Let's use the word pin. So if I say P, set it to the mat, you have to do the letters individually. If you want to change the letters in different orientations, you have to put them onto the screen separately. If you want the word as it is, you can just type it in, and you can only use it in the horizontal orientation. So from here, if we then move this word so that we've got it as a vertical, so let's get the letter I, go into here, move that down under the P, and the same with the N. So if we go into the magnifying glass, let's put it onto 400 so we can see it easier. So now we can see, I mean, we can't do an exact measure because we haven't got small amounts on our screen here, but if we sort of eyeball it, that sort of looks about the same spacing. But we want to align the words so that the I halfway between the P and the N. So if we go into OK, go into select all, say OK, go into the arrows, go into alignment, and we want to align it horizontally. So if we tap this button here, say OK, go back into the magnifying glass, be able to see that that is now all in line vertically. You need to put the letters on individually, and then you can group them and then align them so that they all look correct, rather than sort of guessing where you're going to align them. So from here, if we say OK, go back into select all, say OK, object edit and group, and now we can move this anywhere on our project and cut it out or cut it into a project. So at this stage, if you just wanted to cut the individual letters but you wanted them vertically, that is how you would align them and then group them and move them to where you want them on your project. Also, if you wanted to resize this word, this is the place at which you do it. Now that it's grouped, if we go into resize, we can make it, I don't know, this size, as much or as large or small as you want it for your project. But again, we don't know the size of each letter unless we come in and out of the group or ungroup function. So now we know that each letter has got a height of 1.83 inches, so that should be the same. Whoops, let's go on to P. Yeah, there you go. And then I is also the same. So it increases all of the, or decreases all of the objects by the same proportion. So if we go back into the start, go into this screen again, let's go into here this time. I'm just going to show you on the tags. So if you look at this first tag here, say OK, and set it to the mat. So from here, let's say we want 10 of these tags. Go into edit, object edit, and duplicate. So we just go up to 10 and we'll get 10 of these on our screen. So go into OK, this function here will set them out on the screen in the best, most economical way for our paper or cardstock. So tap on there, it's sorted them that way. If you go on to this one or go on to that one, so you can just choose whichever one you want. So let's just do the middle one for the sake of it. Right, so from here, go into OK, into edit, object edit, and we want to look at the size. So we know that the height of each of our tags is 3.94 inches. So we want to cut all of them out at this size. So go and do that. But now we think, okay, we want the same tags, but we want them all to be 3.5 inches. So that would now mean going in and changing each one of those either down to 3.5 inches or taking that off the screen, going back, putting the tag on and then duplicating it, and then you've got them. So there is a couple of ways of doing it, but if you wanted to group it and then resize them all so that they all reduce by the same proportion, again we could go into OK, select all, say OK, object edit, group, go into resize, and then we just reduce it. But don't forget, the size we've got here is the size of our bounding box, not the size of each tag. So it's a bit of guesswork. So if we take this down by, let's go to 7 inches. So we want to go to, what did we say? There we go, nearly 3.5 inches. So it's a bit of guesswork going back and forth, but like I say, if you've got a number of them, it's probably easier to do it this way. But if you've got 3 or 4, it's probably just as quick to do them individually. So the last thing I wanted to show you from here then is if we had these already grouped. So let's go into select all, say OK, object edit and group. So we've got these grouped, and now we think, oh okay, that you want to save them. If you save them at this stage, what will happen is when you go back to retrieve it, you can't ungroup them. So if you do that and you go back, you won't know what size your tags are because you can't ungroup it, because it will give you the measure of this bounding box. If I just do that now, go into OK, and save, and say OK, it tells you there that once you've grouped it, you can't ungroup it. So say OK. So let's go back to the main screen. So now you're coming back, you're going to retrieve it and think, right, okay, I want to have a look at those tags and I want to know what size it was. So go into your machine, go down, you pick your project back up, set it to the mat, go into edit, object edit, and this is not lit up because it won't allow you to ungroup that project that you've left here on this mat. So really keep in mind that whenever you're saving any of your projects, always save them so that they're not grouped. That way when you go back to retrieve it, you can always pick up 1 or 2 objects, whichever ones that you want to cut only, rather than having to cut all of them. And also you'll be able to see what sizes they are, whereas here now we don't know what size this is. The only size that's going to give us is the red bounding box, which is a bit useless really, but that's the only way this machine does this for us. So if we always save the project ungrouped, you'll always be able to know what size the individual objects are. So if we just go back to the start, if we just do a quick recap, we just pick up this rectangle, set it to the mat, oops, go into edit, object edit, and we need more than one to group. So we've got 3 rectangles here. So if we go into OK, select all, say OK, object edit and group. And that's how you group your projects. You can also ungroup it again, tap the screen, and then you've got them individually. And if you want to just group certain items on your mat, if you go into OK, select, that's the partial select, tap on there, but you must have one of the objects highlighted within the group that you want to group. So let's say we want to group these 2 this time. We can take our mat up this way, say OK, it's highlighted those 2, say OK, object edit and group, and now it's grouped both of those, and this is separate. And again we can ungroup, tap our mat, and we've got them separate. Anybody who's new to ScanNCut, I hope this has given you a good indication of how to use the group function. And again, anybody who's coming back to ScanNCut, I hope this has been a good refresher. As always, thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon.